Welcome back to Colors or Crutch. My name is Max Sternberg, also known as WoundedSatellite, and I'm joined, as always, by Daddy Satellite himself, Max P, the Floralian man. How are you doing today, Max?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing good. Had a hell of a weekend. Super Bowl happened, all that fun stuff. We got some good things to talk about today. You know, we're going to go through your rounds at Mox Masters. We're going to talk about some of the rule changes that have been proposed for tournament CEDH. We're going to talk about ClamChowdah versus Sisay, the regular Sisay. It's going to be a good time, man. It's going to be a good time. But I guess before we get any of that, like, how was your weekend? Anything crazy happen?
Well, first, I kind of want to show what arrived in the mail today. You might notice I'm rocking a different hoodie than usual. And, you know, I love my hoodies. You'll notice I'm always wearing a hood. But I actually bought two of these. Weirdly enough, though, the second one was not for myself. I have become everything I once hoped to destroy, and I now have matching sweatshirts with my beautiful dog.
You're a sick man. And
we are the cutest fucking couple. Have you ever seen anything better than this? My week was ups and downs. I think it was last week, Wednesday, Thursday, one of those days. I was driving over to the local disc golf bar, game store, CDH place I play with a group of guys, and like 10 minutes from the shop, I was in a 3-car accident on the highway. I'm fine. Suki was fine. She was just freaked out. Really unfortunate situation where just everyone kind of had to stop a little suddenly. I was able to not hit the car in front of me, and like as I didn't hit that car, I came only a couple feet away. I was like, oh, thank God. And then the car behind me, I guess just barely didn't hit me, like maybe a foot away. And then the Super Duty truck behind them was not as fortunate and slammed into them, which slammed them into me, and so that was a nice little sandwich we made. No one was hurt, everyone is okay, but the cars are a bit messed up, so I've been dealing with insurance quite a bit this week. Going into the weekend, where I had a super fun day at Mox Masters, just playing a deck that, you know, don't have a ton of experience on, just wanted to fuck around and find out, see how it would go, and it went well. After the tournament, awesomely, my fellow former Bostonian who used to play drums turned CDH grinder and coach and rock climber Ian Flannery was in town, so I went and met up with him after I was done with the tournament. We were up very late with a group of people, and we may have collectively finished two bottles of Crown Royale plus some more whiskey, and then, you know, went into my Super Bowl Sunday on very little sleep, where I then did the Hot Ones challenge with a group of guys. And I like spicy food. I like flavorful spice. If I get some ramen, I'm gonna put the chili oil in there. I like that kind of nice spice. The vinegary, pure Scoville, not really my jam. But I do have a pain tolerance, and I like to show what I got. So I did all 10 wings. The last one was 3 million Scoville, and you know, I always thought it was a myth that it hurt more on the way out. You know, I just never really had that experience, but I can...
That's way too much information. Holy shit.
I can now confirm it's not a myth. But no, overall, yeah, ups and downs, pros and cons. Overall, like a really fun week for me. Got to have a lot of good games, a lot of fun memories with people, a lot of good nights, a lot of good experiences. And then I had its painful lows and some hangovers and such. But yeah, I had a great time. How was your week?
Oh, it was great, man. I went up to New York for work, went up to Long Island, and got to play Magic all night with Jorman and Malcolm and Tyler. Tyler, for those who don't know, is the other Florian player out there. So we jammed, yeah. So we jammed Magic basically all night on Thursday night after my work was done for the week. Had a great time, and then went into the Super Bowl weekend. My oldest son has gotten his learner's permit. They require, as part of his driver's ed, for parents to attend a 1.5-hour briefing on, you know, teaching your kids to drive. And they start the briefing off. They said, "We're here to help your children become better drivers before they die."
That's actually
what they said. Yes.
Yo,
at which point I started laughing.
Driving ed. Yeah.
I just lost it and started laughing in the middle of the thing, and everyone looked at me like, "Dude, that's not funny." I'm like, "Yes, it is."
Yes, it is. That's wild. So I was not too bad when I started learning how to drive, but I will never forget the memory of my dad. I was not there for this, but my dad told me my sister, when they were in like the first parking lot that she ever was in the driver's seat of a car for, and he told her to park it in the spot that went parking spot, 10 feet of garden, building. She just touched the brake and then drove over the garden and almost into the wall. And her response when the car didn't stop was, "I thought you just touched the brake and it stopped. You have to hold it down."
terrifying.
Like, how are you 16 years old? You don't know. Yeah.
So yeah.
Common sense is not common.
No, especially with the kids, man. They have no idea what the hell they're doing. Well, before we get into the content, why don't we do the shout outs ahead of time? Why don't you go ahead and talk about coaching? We got to talk about our playmat. We got a few things to go.
Pre-orders for the Colors or Crutch playmat are coming very, very soon. I would imagine we will be announcing the pre-order link and everything probably on the next episode. I feel pretty confident saying that we'll have that link for you next week. We have decided to not cut corners. We are going to be getting the super nice stitched edge, extra thick, like the playmats that last forever and you can enjoy until the end of time. We've decided we'll probably not make as much money on them, but they will be there for eternity and we will be really happy with the product. So we've decided to do that. Not quite ready to give the final price on that, but probably in that, I would imagine right about $40 range for the pre-order. So look into that. If you're interested in CEDH coaching, that is something I personally offer. I've had a lot of success in these recent times, and I'm happy to help you have success as well. I've had starting to get a pretty good track record of like people I've coached making their first top 16s. In this last Mox Masters, a guy I coached on Kinnan made his first top 16, and we did coaching just a couple weeks ago. So probably something correlated there. If you're interested in that, you can find me on Discord as WoundedSatellite or on Twitter as WoundedSatellite / I don't know, Sternberg_Max or whatever. If you're interested in joining our Patreon and supporting the channel, you can find the link for that in the description below. We have several different tiers to choose from that come with different perks involving the Discord and coaching as well. If you want to join our Discord, the link to that is also in the description below. And we are sponsored by what was formerly known as Eminence Gaming, but has recently changed their name to Top Deck.
So get used to it. Well, we may fuck it up a few times, say Eminence by accident, but it's Top Deck from now on.
I will.
Yeah, Top Deck.
Yeah. 100% I'm going to mess that up
a
bunch of times,
Zane.
but I'll get better at it.
Okay, so moving on to our first topic. There was a document that was released earlier this week proposing some rules changes to how tournament CEDH is run. It was a document that was put out by some of the judges that are known in our community, all like level 2 or higher judges that put this document together, and kind of looking for ways to solve some of the problems that you run into in tournament CEDH. Things like people conceding and giving games away, how to handle people losing before the games are over, all that kind of stuff. I have a lot of opinions on it. I know you have a lot of opinions on it. Okay. Max and I are about to go on a little rant here about some of the proposed rule changes made by a group of judges that are well known in our community and definitely have our best interests at heart. We have some criticisms for some of the changes that they made. Well, as it turns out, between the time this was recorded and now, as I'm sitting here editing this video, 2 things have happened. One, our feedback, the feedback of the community was heard, and the rule regarding players being eliminated before the end of a round that ends in a draw have changed. Originally, it was going to be that player would receive 0 points. That has been amended now. That player will receive 1 point along with the rest of the pot. So that's great news. The second thing is that Max and I actually learned how to read. We made some comments about the instant speed concession policy, and we missed a whole sentence in there that really kind of changes the way that this whole rule can be read. And that sentence simply says, a player who needs to concede at any other time will be dropped from the event and must talk to a tournament organizer in order to re-enter. So that means, yes, absolutely, players can concede at instant speed during a tournament. That instant speed concession can really screw things up. But if a player does that, they not only concede that game, they drop themselves from the tournament. And then they have to go talk to the tournament organizer if they want to get back in. So in that case, sure, if you have, like, I don't know, a panic attack during the middle of a game and you have to concede, and you go talk to the tournament organizer and explain that to them, you're probably going to get added back to the event. If you go to the tournament organizer and you explain, I really dislike, player A and I wanted him to lose, so I conceded, you're probably not getting back into the event. So as it turns out, while Max and I are sitting here playing checkers, the judges are playing chess. So kudos to them. Turns out they did a really great job with some of these rule proposals, and we were wrong. So thanks, judges. Appreciate you guys. On with the video. We're not going to hold back. We're going to tell you what we really think of it, and I'll put up on the screen the document, and we'll kind of scroll up and down it as we go through talking about it. But the big ones,
This
Yeah.
This might be a rant. This might be another rant you got to give me the chipmunk voice for. I'm like,
I don't think so, because I'm going to jump in and give you my shit too, because like I have so many thoughts on this, dude. So many thoughts on it. I mean, before we get into the other stuff, I mean, I'll point out the one change that I think was good, that makes a lot of sense to me, and that's really dealing with buys. And the new rule says that any player, it's MTRA 3.1. Any player receiving a bye will have 3 opponents added to their opponent history with a 0.33 win rate percentage, which makes a lot of sense.
I have been asking for this.
Yeah,
I have been asking for this for months. This is the one change that I'm like ecstatic. Finally, like, please, because buys are so fucking broken. If you get a bye in the first 2 rounds, it sets you up to just always be at the top of your point value, because you don't, like, if you get a bye round 1. Then the only opponents you have played in the entire tournament always have at least 1 win. You have no players with no wins in your opponent win percentage. It's beyond broken. You get a free win for not playing a game, and you get to be miles ahead on opponent win percentage. It was beyond broken. I hated it. I've been complaining about it for like as long as I've been playing CDH, because I remember the first tournament I ever played it, and I looked at the person with a bye, and I was like, why are they ahead of everyone else? This feels broken. So that's the one thing I want to
and for those that don't know or haven't played in tournaments, one of the biggest things is tiebreakers, because inevitably what happens at the end of the tournament, at the end of Swiss, is you end up with a cut line where you have a group of people who have the same amount of points. Typically in a online tournament, you have like 130 to 140 players who are in 5 rounds. That point breaker is like around 12 points probably. At which point some people make the cut to top 16 at 12 points and some don't. And the difference is opponent win percentage. Right? So the players who have the higher win percentage will get higher seeding and make the cut, and those with lower will not make the cut, which is kind of...
And to try and explain how drastic this is, going into this Mox Masters tournament from this Saturday, Freedom Waffle was the top of the 12-pointers. He was the 6th overall seed. He went 2nd in his top 16 pod, and it worked out that he went 1st in his top 4 pod. I also had 12 points. 12 points was the cutoff where some 12-pointers didn't even make it, and I had a lower opponent win percentage, and I was the 14th seed going into top 16.
Yeah.
Which means that I was 4th in my top 16 game, and most likely would have been 4th if I made top 4.
Right.
Like, that is a drastic difference in where you are sitting in your pod, where we had the same amount of points. We won and drew the same amount of games, but just because of opponent win percentage, the order that we won our games in, which helps us get to those specific opponent win percentages, drastically different experience in the final spots.
Right. So prior to this change, if you got a bye, you automatically got a higher win percentage from your opponents just by getting a bye, which is broken. So this fixes that. This solves that problem. So getting a bye no longer is a alley-oop into top 16 if you get the bubble points. Okay, so that one's good. I like that one. That's the only change
which I do
like, by the way.
Yeah. Before we get into some negativity towards this document, I do want to shout out the people who created this document. I have nothing but the utmost respect for.
100%.
Absolutely. I do not know Brooke. Brooke is someone I may have met them, but I just don't know that I met them. But Seth, Max, Baldy, love and appreciate them, everything they do for the community. They are incredibly wonderful people. Everything I am about to say about this document is not in any way supposed to be saying anything about the people who made it.
Oh, agreed. Huh?
They are wonderful. They are wonderful people who are pillars of our community. We love and appreciate them. I want to start with
and they're doing this because they're trying to make this work better. So 100%, we applaud the effort. Like, not mad at you guys. You guys are the best. Our criticism of the changes themselves should not reflect on you guys at all. This is about the rules and about 100%. the changes that are recommended. So with that, I mean, let's rip the Band-Aid off. The first one that...
Can I talk about these?
Huh?
Yeah. Can I let them know about this new draw rule?
Yeah, so that's the first one. So here, I'll read it real quick and I'll let you rant for a minute, and then I'll chime in too. Okay, so under appendix it says match points. Players earn 5 match points for each match win, 0 points for each match loss, and 1 match point for each match ending in a draw. Cool, makes sense. Players receiving buys are considered to have won the match. Also makes sense. Players eliminated prior to the end of the round receive 0 points. So even if the match ends in a draw, if I went for a Final Fortune turn and failed to win, I get 0 points. Am I reading that right? Am I reading that right?
Yes. Yes. You're also, what also can happen here is if you're in, I don't know, one of those scenarios where everyone in the pod wants to draw and one person doesn't.
Just kill them,
because they're on the bubble and not sure if they're going to make top 16 if they draw. Now you can just team up and murder that person and then agree to a draw. Because also, just so you guys are aware, when someone is eliminated from the game, whether they've died to a Final Fortune turn, whether they've drawn an empty library, whether they've died to having 0 health, whatever way they have died or conceded from this game, they are no longer a part of that game. They have no say, they have no vote, they are unable to affect the game in any way imaginable. They are no longer a member. They are not allowed to talk, they are not allowed to do anything. They have no power, no agency, no decision. Which... this was mentioned on Twitter, and Seth's response to this was, this is what happened anyway. You already 3v1 this person. If you got paired up in your round 5, you're just fucked. That's like already the current situation of draws, which is not inaccurate. I want to say, like, that is kind of true. If you're a 10-pointer against 3 11-pointers who want to draw that game, you are so screwed. And I'm so sorry that you unfortunately got paired up and put in that situation. It sucks. It is the worst possible thing because they want the draw, you need the win. The chance of you winning that game is so low. So now you're even more screwed because now let's say that you're the bottom 11-pointer and you're like, I'm just not sure if I make the cut at 12 here. And you want to play it out and say, okay, if it ends in a draw and we agree to that different part of the game, great. But I need to try and win because I feel like that solidifies my place. Now they can kill you and you won't even get that point. And to Seth's point, he said that was already the situation. Nothing has really changed if you look at it from those scenarios. But the problem is, give me one positive from this. Give me any argument that in any way makes this a positive change. Because like all these other changes, I can understand some thought process of how they lead to some, which again, I'm a big believer in no change is ever going to be perfect. No change is ever going to be absolutely perfect and fix everything and do everything we want to do. That doesn't exist. But every change has to be net positive and moving the needle towards something better. That is the overall goal. Nothing is perfect, but it has to be net positive. I can't think of anything positive.
No, and I'll go further.
I can't think of anything.
I'll go further. I think this is game warping in a bad way. Because what's going to happen is you're going to end up with these games where you have, these gummed up board states where things are kind of shut down and everyone has a draw engine on board. You're in mid-range hell and the game's just kind of chugging along. And at that point, players are actively discouraged from attempting wins. Because at that point, if I go and I attempt to win, I go for it. I put my Thassa's Oracle on the stack, I exile my library and hope to get a win there. If I lose, I get 0 points. So now I have to like put that calculus into my brain as I'm trying to decide whether to take any risks during the game. And the answer to that is, a lot of the times I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to put a win attempt on the stack, in the face of adversity, because if I lose, I go from 1 point to 0 points, right? So you're going to have more draws because people are going to play more conservative because they don't want to risk losing that 1 point. So
it also opens up terrible play patterns of just griefing the shit out of people. Like let's say I'm against you and you're 1 or 2 spots ahead of me at the same point value, right? And I can say it's not correct for me to do this for any sense of winning the game, but I'm going to swing all my creatures at you every turn. I'm going to kill you in this mid-range hell. I've got my big beaters out with Kinnan. I'm not winning the game. This game's 100% going to a draw time, but I'm just going to murder you so you don't get a point, so I get to jump you in points and standing.
Yep.
That's not playing the game to win the game. That's not tournament magic. That's not the type of fucking mini games I want to be playing.
Yep.
I'm here to play CEDH. I'm not here to play some fucking bullshit spite play casual ass bullshit. That's dumb. That's actively dumb. This change, I cannot think of any sense of positivity. I think it only leads to unhealthy play patterns, unhealthy situations, toxic behavior, the exact opposite of everything we want to be seeing and progressing towards in the CDH community. I hate this change.
Yeah,
I absolutely hate this
complete disaster of an idea, unfortunately. Like I understand everyone's heart was in the right place. Like you're trying to figure out how to avoid spite pacts and so on and that kind of thing. And trying to reduce draws, but this is going to have the opposite impact of that.
No, that's a big one. That's actually the biggest thing. Now you can't do the pack, because that used to be a very big thing, where let's say I only have 3 mana and someone puts a win on the stack. And I can say, okay, I'm going to play for the draw. I'm going to pact this. and hope that this game goes to the draw. This eliminates that behavior. And I know some people don't like the Spite Pact. I think it's an important part of Magic, because I think the ability to play for a draw is an important part of competitive Magic.
Yeah.
To get those points. Like, that is a very important part of Tournament CEDH. And some people would disagree with that, and that's okay. This is my personal opinion on this one. I do believe, like, the fact that I can use that pact, and if I die, I can still hope the game goes to a draw, I think is actually a very good thing.
Yeah,
I actually think that's a good
I agree.
thing.
And there's a big conversation going on right now talking about, what to do about draws and whether or not draws should be 0 points, in general. And I don't think people realize that.
No.
I don't think people realize the impact of doing something like that, because having the ability to draw introduces the ability to play in a way that's responsible, even if you're not winning the game. And if you don't have that capability, if you can't play for a draw, if you can't get any points for a draw, then that introduces a play pattern where you are incentivized to just fucking go for it, even when it makes absolutely no sense to do so. You're just,
throw the game to people.
Completely destroy games where, like, everyone's been playing responsible for, 5 or 6 turns. The time's getting kind of low. You've got 5 minutes left in the round, and now you have a decision to make. Do I just go for it here, even though my chances of winning are slim to none? Because if I don't win, I'm going to get 0 points anyway. And then I go and I go for a line that feeds 3 fishes and, just completely destroys the table,
but also,
and then pass the turn.
Imagine this.
Yeah.
Imagine this, though. If draws become 0 points, it also means losing a game is better than drawing a game because of opponent win percentage. If you guys all draw that game and you all get 0 points, no one in your pod won that game. All of your opponents got no wins from that game.
Right.
Versus, if I lose a game, at least one of my opponents won the game, which helps my opponent win percentage. It makes draws literally worse than losing. It completely goes against responsible play. It leads to toxic play patterns. It leads to bad CDH. It leads to shit games, and that's not what I'm here to do. Well, I'm here to play tournament CDH and play good fucking games.
And it doesn't even solve the problem, because what's going to happen is you're going to end up with a top 20 people who all have the same scores, or except for the top 4 or 5 people. Everyone has the same point total. They'll have 10 wins or 10 points or 15 points. And then it's going to decide, top 16 will be decided 100% based on how your opponents did. Like, how many wins did your opponents get? It has nothing to do with you. You have no control over it. You can't, that will be, to me, as toxic as people getting in by IDing. Right? So it solves no problem. So going to 0 points for draws, it creates a whole new toxic environment completely out of its own. And a lot of people,
I think it solves nothing.
It solves nothing, but a lot of people think it will.
It solves
and
nothing.
I think what we'll see happen is, I think we'll see that get adopted by some tournaments, and then
please,
I'm telling you, it's going to happen. And then you're going to see people be like, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. But it's going to take trying it and people seeing that, that side of it to realize how fucked up that approach would be.
I mean, but also, if that becomes the actual approach, it means everyone is now going to be playing greedy as shit, and then I am playing RogSi and Omnixilus in every fucking event.
Yeah. It's insane. It'll be so bad. It'll be so bad. Yeah, because you're going to have people just completely go for whack-ass lines where they have no hope. And it becomes turn order simulator every single match. It's just not a good idea.
Try and keep some kind of fucking meme hand that just reverse Thoracles on turn 3. I don't know why anyone would do that.
Yeah, watch me go trick bind people's Thoracle just to make them lose so that they can drop below me in standings, and it's gonna be awful, dude. It's gonna be awful.
Yep. Oh, you know what card will become more of a staple in that world?
What's that?
Angel's Grace.
Oh yeah, that's right.
There is no card better at griefing someone else out of a win, but not winning you the game.
Yeah. Such a bad idea.
Yeah.
Now, what else? What are the other things in here? What about conceding an instant speed? Where is that in here? I'm looking for it.
So it's something that people were talking about. I don't remember exactly how it's worded. I can find it in document. We're gonna have the link to the document in the description below. You can also check that out there. It's pretty much saying like before it used to be, it used to be something like, you can concede, but a judge will exist to take all relevant game actions. If you have to go, we understand that. Now it pretty much says, we strongly discourage you doing this.
Right.
But you can do it. And like the big difference here is a judge will fill in if you have to like instant speed leave, but only for a very select amount of time. So like if you're in combat when you choose to instant speed concede, a judge will only take the relevant game actions until the end of combat, and then you cease to exist.
Here's
and the only real effect this has is on people who go for a final fortune turn or Tivit. It's a big downgrade to Tivit, because with Tivit you're taking multiple turns, and if the judge only exists for the phase that you concede in, now you can essentially instant speed concede against Tivit because they have to take multiple turns to win the game if they're doing the time sieve route. Same idea if in end step my player goes for a final fortune turn and I know they got a dockside in hand and I got all the artifacts, I can instant speed concede. A judge will exist for that end step, and then I cease to exist on right after that end step, and what do you know, your dockside count is fucked. Where the old way would happen is if you actually like emergency had to scoop away your cards, a judge would exist and all of your permanents would exist there hypothetically until your next sorcery speed phase.
Yep.
So if I was going into your next final fortune turn or your next turn on Tivit, even if I had to scoop up all my cards, I would still technically exist for the votes for Tivit. I would still technically exist for my artifact account and everything for your dockside on the final fortune turn. Like all of those things still there. Now they're not. Right. And I do not like this change.
Yeah,
I do not like this change at all. And to be very clear, just because this is something that's legally allowed to do, and I have said on many occasions, don't hate the player, hate the game. Make the best decisions in whatever contextual scenario they've created for you. If this is adopted, which actually one thing we have not mentioned, this document is not adopted by Top Deck currently. It is not something they will currently be using. They are yet to decide on that. It may happen, but as of right now, as we are recording this, they have not adopted this document, so these changes might not be in place for your next tournament. Just something to keep in mind. But to be very clear, even though I've talked about making the best decisions in the, for the context of the system that has been presented to me, if I am in a game and you are on Tivit or you go to your final fortune turn and it is absolutely optimal and tournament-wise correct for me to instant speed concede and be that person, I will never do that.
Agreed.
Absolutely never. That is a fucked up thing to do. You are griefing someone for no fucking reason on a game that they deserve to win. There is no optimization for you, and like there is technically optimization for you, but like I will absolutely never do this. I hope that everyone else who has any fucking voice in this community says the same thing. This is not the type of toxic behavior that we want in our community. This is not what we want to make a part of.
Yeah, here's the way it's worded. I found it in the document, just so I'll read it real quick here. So it says, a judge will facilitate any mandatory actions of the conceded player until the stack is empty. Okay, so not even the phase, just the current stack, right? And then in the event that this happens in response to combat, the turn will be facilitated until the end of combat. So like you said, like we've all played enough tournaments and enough games of CDH to know that there's all kinds of shit that's going to be completely screwed by the player leaving, not even just Tivit, right? Like you said, docksides, or like stacks pieces that are on board that get removed when the player concedes. Like those are all things that can happen that completely spoil a game. And to Max's point,
so if this is
like, to Max's point, like I don't give a shit if this takes me out of contention for a win of an entire tournament. I am never going to fucking do this, ever. I'm never going to concede just to fuck someone else over in a way that doesn't advance me to a potential win of the game. I'm not going to do it, period. End of story. I'm not going to do it in casual games. Like, completely ridiculous. But this opens the door for people to do that.
Yeah, which I'm actually curious, if it's the stack clear thing, does that mean you're on Florian, you cast the dockside, and I concede with the dockside on the stack, and then dockside resolves, stack is clear?
Correct.
I no longer exist, and then your dockside trigger is put on the stack, and
correct.
What do you know, I'm gone.
Correct. 100%. Stack is empty.
Beyond dumb. Beyond dumb. Beyond dumb.
It doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense at all. All right, I'm going to scoop like you have a Lavinian play, right? Let's say you have a Lavinian play, and I have interaction on my hand to stop someone from winning, but I can't do anything because that Lavinia is there. So you concede. Lavinia disappears. I can now counter this player's spell and stop them from winning by you conceding. That's fucked up. That's fucked up. Like, no.
Well, no, that doesn't work because the stack is still there. They exist until the stack.
No. Let's say like.
So if they cast a spell and you have a Lavinia out, you couldn't realistically get rid of the Lavinia.
Only to stop what's happening on the stack at that particular moment. Sure. But everything that happens after that.
Yeah, if you know they're going to cast it.
Yeah, they're casting. Let's say they're casting a. They cast a tutor. No, they're casting an Underworld Breach. Underworld Breach resolves, and you have a Force of Vigor in hand, right? I concede. Now I can Force of Vigor.
Yep.
That's fucked up. Like no.
I hate that. No, I hate it so much.
Not good. Not good. Not healthy for the format.
Not good at all.
No.
Not good at all.
Yeah. So we'll put the link in the description below. We really want to hear your thoughts as well. And provide feedback not just to us. Like reach out to the Top Deck. Let them know what you think. Let them know if you like these or don't like these. Very important that we all have a voice as this goes forward. If we don't say anything and then these get implemented and we reap the whirlwind because of it, that's on us for not speaking out. So make your voices heard. Okay.
God, I hope it doesn't get implemented.
What a nightmare, dude. What a nightmare.
Yeah, no, this is beyond miserable.
Yeah, not a good idea. All right. Deep breath. Put that behind us. Yep. What?
We should shout out something positive that happened this week. Two of our very good friends of the show, friends of the community, Freedom Waffle and Memo, released their new podcast called Final Fortune. They released their first episode a few days ago. They are a much shorter, more streamlined, efficient time block than ours is. They're trying to keep all the episodes around 30 minutes. So if you prefer that kind of, short form podcast, I strongly recommend you check them out. They're awesome people, awesome creators, and I expect more amazing content to come from them. The link to their YouTube channel will be in the description below, so make sure to like and subscribe to their comment as well and help support the overall CEDH community.
Yeah, and I have a strong suspicion you'll see more of them on our channel and more of us on their channel. So yeah, we're good friends with them. We love them.
Maybe.
But they're good people, good podcast, so definitely check it out. All right, moving on to the next topic, and this is ClamChowdah versus regular Sisay. So I'll let you go first here.
I want you to go first because you played against both decks over the weekend.
Yeah, so I'll get general first. I don't know the decks in detail card for card, but what I do know is that ClamChowdah is a more sort of turbo, no bad card approach to Sisay, right? Instead of having these sort of janky, planeswalkers and funky cards in there that do weird things, it's really trying to run all the good cards in those 5 colors and try to win more traditional ways than the Sisay lines that we've seen in recent months.
What that means is you can expect to see cards like Thassa's Oracle, Mnemonic Consultation, Underworld Breach, Brain Freeze, Mnemonic Betrayal, Intuition.
Correct.
You get those packages of highly efficient win conditions that are commander agnostic.
Yes, which is very different than the Sisay lines you see in the past, where you go and you get tutor chains going, and you end up with, blinking with Aminatu plus, Bolus, Dragon God, etc. All those crazy lines that people have become accustomed to seeing. This is very different than that. Over the last week, like I said, I got up to Long Island, and I got to jam all night with Malcolm. Malcolm Beckford. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he's kind of the god pilot when it comes to Sisay. Great guy to play with, great guy to hang out with. And really an amazing pilot, and runs Sisay like no one else. And basically what happened is for the first part of the night, he ran ClamChowdah. Ran a bunch of games on ClamChowdah. And then the second half of the night, he ran a bunch of games on his regular list. And I, in my opinion, I vastly prefer Malcolm's regular list. And I'll tell you my opinion why. And it really comes down to being able to avoid interaction. Because we're the classic win lines that ClamChowdah brings to bear, like you said, Mnemonic Betrayal, Thassa's Oracle, Underworld Breach. Most decks are built with good answers for those problems at this point in CEDH. So when you go to put a Meme Betrayal in the stack, I have good interaction for that. If you go to do an Underworld Breach, I have good graveyard hate. I have good interaction for all of those things. I do not have good interaction for Sisay tutoring, weird stuff onto the battlefield, that is just impossible to interact with. And Malcolm's whole philosophy of his version of the deck is to be as hard to interact with as possible. And I think that gives that deck a distinct advantage, in my mind, over the ClamChowdah version. What about you? What do you think?
So yeah, I mean, when looking at the two decks, which I think part of it, Malcolm has, probably 1,000+ games on traditional Sisay tutor lines. Like, that is his play style. That is what he's worked with. That's what he's had continuous success on. That's really what he's built around. That's his whole image in this community. So like, I would expect him to pilot that list better right now with 1,000 games versus maybe the 30-40 he has at this point on ClamChowdah. That makes a level of sense to me. I'm always a really big fan of, in the way I brew, making my decks capable of winning without their commander. I won my top 16 game at the Boil without ever casting Kinnan. I won a Kinnan game last night just grinding it out without needing Kinnan at all. I got my Nezahal on the battlefield, they killed Kinnan, I said fucking go for it. When I play Talion, I don't need Talion for Hullbreaker Horror, Thassa's Oracle, Meme Betrayal. Half the time we're killing Talion to get our combo through. You know what I mean? Sure. Same thing when I play Obnixilis. Like, Obnixilis is a great engine piece, but do I care about Obnixilis when I'm doing breach lines? Do I care about him when I'm doing Citadel bullshit or when I'm nosing into whatever? Like, no, I don't need him. So I'm a very big fan of that playstyle, because when I talk about decks, I'm a huge fan of increasing your card quality to be as consistent as possible, because I think that's what makes optimized CEDH decks. I'm a big fan of that brewing style. I've even told people, like, my version of Kinnan is no bad cards Kinnan. There's none of these really high upside, really low, or like completely dead floor cards. They're all cards with a really stable floor, and some of the cards I'm lacking have that true nutty upside, but it's very consistent in working how you want it to work. And No Bad Card Sisay, I think, does a really good job of that. The problem I can see with it is it still has both strategies, and if you're having cards for both strategies, I can imagine, and I'm very much hypothesizing here. I've played against the ClamChowdah version of Sisay very, very few times, but I'm hypothesizing that it will be somewhat inconsistent. Like, I had some games on Najila the other night where Ian had the deck with him, and immediately when you're just like looking at the hands, you're like, oh, this deck has so many ways to win the game, but I just have cards for different win lines and play patterns in my hand right now, and they don't actually synergize or work together at all, and this is not working towards a cohesive game plan. And I could see Sisay kind of having that same issue in the ClamChowdah version, where like, oh, I have some of the cards for like the Sisay plan, and I have some of the cards for like the traditional proactive turbo plan, and that when you have both plans in your deck, it's really nice to have that flexibility, and that flexibility will show itself through as being really incredible sometimes, but it will also create inconsistencies in play patterns, and I think consistency is like the most important part of being an optimized strategy. So I think traditional Sisay is probably far more consistent in what it's doing, but it gets to snipe a lot less wins. And I also wonder how many wins ClamChowdah gets because people aren't expecting it, because that's not what people think when they go against Sisay. So I'd be very curious if that became the prominent Sisay, like how that deck would do. I would imagine a lot worse than when people are like expecting that out of Sisay, because like you said, the calling card of Sisay is how difficult it can be to interact with, and that's why I love the Kinnan matchup with it, because Kinnan is a deck that has more than the average CDH deck of onboard creature interaction. But like, yeah, traditional Sisay is really, really good, but it does fall into the pattern of, oh, I Gilded Drake your Sisay, you're kind of fucked.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
I repeatedly kill your Sisay, you're kind of fucked. So like, there's absolutely pros and cons for both decks. I think that if I was going into a random tournament where nobody knew me, I actually think I would prefer ClamChowdah Sisay, because I think the spike ability of that is really, really high.
Okay.
And also, when people are expecting the play pattern of just continuously deal with the Sisay, keep the Bloom Tender off the battlefield, having the ability to have some types of those wins, or the simple stuff of just like, I will only use my Sisay to get this to Fairy, and I don't care about nothing else, because no one's expecting that when you don't have a lot of cards in hand and you don't have your Bloom Tender on the battlefield. You know, those kind of play lines. I think being able to just snipe those wins is really, really strong. But I think if I was going into a developed place of people who knew what I was doing, regardless of if my deck is ClamChowdah or regular Sisay, I think the consistency of regular Sisay on a pilot that is really used to doing that, like Malcolm Beckford, will probably have more success with that type of list. I think that's just a little bit better.
That's fair. That's fair. So let's name the soup, right? So if it's ClamChowdah for no bad cards Sisay, what are we gonna call? I'm gonna call it Malcolm soup, or Malcolm's Malcolm Chowder, or Malcolm ball soup.
I feel like it's
what
just French.
What do you want to call it?
It's French onion.
French onion soup. Okay, all right.
It's French onion.
All right. So Malcolm's French onion soup versus ClamChowdah. I'll just put it out there. You guys can tell us what you think, but I'm on team French onion, baby. I am not on the ClamChowdah train. But moving on. So with that, I mean, you played in Mox Masters over the weekend. You brought some new spice to the not new spice, but new spice for you. Like, how many games did you play on RogSi before the tournament at this point? Like,
right about 30 would be
total of 30 games. Okay, I'll just put this
30.
out there. There's no fucking way I'm going to take a deck that I only have 30 reps on and take it to a major tournament ever. I'm never doing that ever. So you've got balls the size of bowling balls over there, my friend. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
You got the chutzpah, baby.
Yeah, I mean, I almost, as we talked about, I almost played RogSi at the Boyo with like less than 10 games on it at that point, where I was just like, I don't know. I've to some extent, there's two parts to my brain right now, where part of me is just like grind kin in every tournament, get that fucking tournament win, get that crown, baby. And whenever I play Kinnan, trust me, if you're against me when I'm on Kinnan, that is my fucking mindset. I'm coming for it 100%. But if I'm not on Kinnan, if my goal in any event is to give myself the best probability of winning that event, I will always be on Kinnan, if that is where my head is at. Whenever I am not on Kinnan, I am essentially sacrificing that goal and saying I care a little bit more about having fun today. I care a little bit more about just fucking around and finding out and seeing how I do. So that was kind of my mindset on RogSi. Like the same idea when I played Yidris for that local event. Like I just wanted to fuck around and find out and just like have a good time. And if I completely scrubbed out and went 0-5, like as long as I had a fun day, I couldn't have cared less. Making top 16 was honestly a surprise to me. That wasn't something I expected to happen. But turns out when you know your breach lines and you know how to play Magic, you can find a way.
Nice.
So yeah, I had a really fun day overall. I'd had a blast playing RogSi for the 30 games I had on it. I got to do some like really crazy lines. Just like playing against some friends and stuff, and it was really intriguing for me, and it tested my brain in a very different way than I was used to being tested, and that was enjoyable. And there's lots of pivot points, lots of different ways you can go with the deck. I think the play pattern of people saying I just want to go as fast as possible is wrong. I view the deck from a point of your job is to accumulate resource, and then you want to utilize that resource in a selected window to win the game, and there's just a high correlation between that window being in the early turns where there's less likely to be interaction for you. So it's kind of my philosophy with the deck. So there's a big pivot point mentally for me where like, do I tutor for Ristic Study? Do I tutor for Necropotence? Like that kind of stuff. It's been a really fun time, and I mean the lines just involving so many cards, having access to 3 colors is mind blowing. Man, that's a crazy amount of power right there.
Need them.
So I had fun. I had a lot of fun. Should I just hop right in?
Yeah, let's go round by round. Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, round 1 of the event, I immediately got to be on the play, and let me tell you, I was hyped when I saw that I got to be in a play. Which also, overall, some of the best turn order seating I've ever had in an event for this one, which was kind of convenient for the event that I chose to be on RogSi. But I got to be on the play round 1. In second seat was Blue Farm. In third seat was Def Cat on Tivit. And in fourth seat was Spizer, the guy I've known from Elevere, on Kutzel, Selesnya Kutzel. Yeah, so I kept what was my second 7, I believe. And this hand was gas. My hand was Land, Rograk, Infernal Plunge, Talisman of Blue-Red, Mystic Remora, Ragavan on turn 1 on the play. So I was like, let's fucking go. Turns out, whatever the fuck Blue Farm kept, I don't understand. It seemed like they kept a hand mostly to grief me with the Dauntless Dismantler, but also with a really slow game plan, which I don't know why you'd ever keep that against RogSi on the play with like no counterspell interaction at all. So I don't really understand what their keep was, but their hand was very slow and didn't have anything. So I got no cards on the fish from them. And then Def Cat on Tivit in third seat, mulled to 3. So I did not get anything from them. And then Kutzel in fourth seat when turn 1 Manglehorn blew up my Talisman. So I was like, okay, cool. So I just, pay for fish, swing with Ragavan, make treasure. I blew my whole hand out on turn 1. I didn't have anything beyond that. Turn 2, Blue Farm, after going land pass, plays a Dauntless Dismantler and passes. Tivit, once again, can't do anything. Kutzel goes, okay, Draenith Magistrate. And I'm like, okay. Once again, I've gotten like 1 card off the fish in this time from a Mana Crypt out of Kutzel. We go to turn 3, we go to turn 4. The situation continues where Blue Farm and Tivit do nothing, and Kutzel just plays a Stacks piece while telling me they're not a Stacks deck, which I guess they just hit every Stacks piece in their deck. So suddenly, like, I paid for the fish for 5 turns.
Damn.
I got like 4 total. I got like 4 total draws on that fish, and by the time that was over, I mean, Kutzel has developed an incredible stacks-based board. Blue Farm has literally just a Dauntless Dismantler and lands. They've done nothing. Tivit has 1 land, maybe a Chromox at this point in the battlefield, and Kutzel has Manglehorn, Draenith, Deafening Silence, Dauntless Dismantler. Like, it was the perfect game script for the Selesnya Stacks deck to take over, where just like all the other players kept hands that only were there to try and stop me, but not actually do anything. So they're allowed to just do their thing and not be touched at all. So it worked out really, really well in that position. I mean, I drew nothing of relevance that entire game, which was a little unfortunate. And then Kutzel was able to get it on a really cool infinite combo, which I really like the way he built the deck, where obviously he's playing some kind of like fragile, easy to interact with, like multi-card piece combos that were a little funky.
You got Kutzel,
but the fact that Kutzel is a science effect in your command zone makes it really cool. So I think the combo he officially won with, he has the new Nissa Resurgent Animist, might be incorrect, I'm not sure, but the one that like gives you mana for land drops, but then on your second one finds an elf or elemental. Yes. So because of that, he was able to find, using only this card, both Curian Ranger and Ashaya. And once you do that, you're able to make infinite mana. Because you have the Nissa on board, it functions as the Lotus Cobra for that combo, where you can just replay and rebounce your Curian Ranger while untapping a different creature that's also a land infinitely as well. So it makes infinite mana. And then, yeah, made infinite mana of every color in that regard. And from that point, he was able to play Seed something witch, whatever the one is, which is it can infinitely pump your creatures for like +3/+3 and maybe some other ability, I'm not even sure, but essentially it gives all your creatures infinite power, and you have a silence effect, so you just swing out and win the game. It was a really great win by Spicer. Awesome to get it from 4th seed. Definitely a game structure that like leaned into being like perfect for that deck there. But yeah, it was an interesting one. It was kind of disheartening on RogSi to see, because I'd been told, you know, leading up to the tournament, they're like, oh, you're just gonna get grief by people keeping hands that just stop you and don't win. And I was like, okay, cool. And that one wasn't fully that. I think Blue Farm's hand was a little bit that, but like Tivit unfortunately just mulled a 3 and the fish fed nothing. So just the way that one worked out, it felt a little shitty to go 0-1, but I was like, sure, whatever, bro. I got to start with what looked like a gas ass hand. It was fun on turn 1. Going into round 2, I was somehow on the play again, back-to-back rounds. I was like, okay. Which also, round 2 started. This was unfortunate. This was very frustrating, actually. For the first time in my CDH career, I was given a bye, and I was beyond hyped for this. I've never gotten a bye before, and this is before any new bye rolls have existed. So I was like, this is busted. This is gonna save my opponent win percentage. This is gonna do everything I want. Absolutely everything I want, because 2 rounds against people with 0 wins is like real bad for the opponent win percentage. I was like, this is beautiful. This is absolutely beautiful. And then I guess there was a ping sent like 5-ish minutes later, but no one saw it and no one informed anyone. And so by the time I was told that there was a round repair, and by the time it actually showed up, the round had been going on for almost 20 minutes. Like, I know I was talking to Manila Midget, and he was like, I was on turn 2 by the time a judge came in and told them there was a repair, which is kind of wild. It was not Chaos's fault, or yeah, Chaos runs Mox Masters. It was not Chaos's fault. It was a tech issue. It was a bug with the Command Tower software, where I guess once round 1 finished and then it paired people up, it didn't give the points to the people like properly or whatever. So like they had to do a repair. It completely makes sense that is the situation. I understand it was no one's fault. It was just frustrating to get this by, and like I was honestly about to leave and like go do some stuff. And I've had a conversation with them since. I was like, what happened if I left and went to the grocery store? Like what would have happened there? And I was never given a real solid answer on that one. They said maybe we would have tried to honor the buy or something, but like no solid answer was ever given. Fortunately, I was able to make it back in time for my pod, and fortunately I was able to, you know, win this game anyway. But like that was a pretty frustrating thing. But then we go into my round 2 though. I was on the play again. It was Thrasios Yoshimaru on the going 2nd, and then we had Kinnan going 3rd, and we had Kinnan going 4th. I was like, okay, we're against my nemesis, you know, kidding. Which is, a lot of people are on a deck very similar to my list now, and my list is designed to dunk on the Grixis turbo decks with the card choices I have in there. That is the whole premise of how I've designed that list. So I was like, this is a little intimidating, and I ended up mulling to 4. And the 4 I kept was Land, Phyrexian Tower, Orcish Bowmaster, Time Twister. With my thought process being, I'm on the play, I can Time Twister on turn 2 if I just feel the need to get a new hand, or I have the option of taking it 1 turn slower, playing out the Bowmaster, which is really good against all 3 of these decks, and then trying to land the Time Twister, with a higher chance of the Time Twister getting countered there, but like, when you're on a Mulda 4 in that kind of position in that matchup, you got to kind of take the upside line sometime. And that ended up working out where, I mean, everyone got kind of scary quick. I ended up using my Bowmaster on turn 2 just to snipe the Yoshimaru, which I found out was like 100% the correct call. That was a questionable decision I made of hitting the L for the Yoshi. I decided to hit the Yoshi. On my next turn, I was able to time twister and no one had anything for it. At the same time, I think some of the people might have had to like try and defend it to stop a win out of one of the Kinnons that like already had Basalt in hand off a Moonsilver key. You know, it worked out, and I spent most of the damage wiping all of their boards and just setting them back so far, and me getting a new hand. Not with the most mana on board, but was able to set it up from a good spot there. And then I was able to quickly play out some mana rocks. I believe it was my following turn. I was able to tutor with, it might have been 2 turns later, I'm not 100% sure, to like develop the mana properly, but I was able to tutor with 5 mana left over while I was tutoring. And the Thrasios Yoshimaru player is the only one I really put on a counterspell there. And I said, show me a counterspell, and I don't get Nas here, I don't go for it. You know, and he was looking at his hand, and I was watching the way he was looking at his hand, and I could tell he had something. He for sure had something, but he was giving me the fuck around and find out answer. And I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, so your counterspell doesn't hit everything, is what that tells me. So I decided to go with Necropotence instead of Nas. Necro lands. I'm like, okay,
Dispel or something?
I just threw. Yeah. I was at. Keep in mind, I'm at 40 life. So I throw, I think, 13 into the first Necro, just try and set myself up. I believe I was able to find Born in that 13, which I was like perfect, and just like some mana production and such. And so then on my following turn, I go down to 4 life, you know, just throw everything right into this fucking Necro. And by the time I've like played my mana and I go for the Born in my end step, I have 3 mana when so I had 4 mana going into my end step after I draw my cards. First thing I do is I Mystical Tutor, go down to 3 mana, put Demonic Tutor on top. Then I spend 2 mana, cast the Born upon a win. Turns out the counterspell Thrasios had was Flusterstorm. Totally fucks my Born, and I'm like, shit. And keep in mind at this point as well, the Kinnon in 4th seat has also played a Soulless Jailer, which is really rough, because that makes breach lines difficult. I trailblazed RogSi a little bit. I made 2 changes to my deck from like the normal Zane-ish list. I took out Grim Tutor and I took out Conqueror's Flail, and I added Phantasmal Image, and I added Dress Down. And I had Dress Down in my hand here. So my Born gets fucked, so I can't get my Demonic Tutor. But what I did have in hand was the Simian Spirit Guide and the Final Fortune. So I send that off. Someone else has a Force of Negation to try and counter the Final Fortune. I got plenty of counter magic for that guy. I just can't stop a Fluster. So we stop that. We go to my second turn. In my upkeep, because I have a Chain of Vapor in hand as well, and I want to know, because I want to draw this Demonic Tutor. I need to draw this Demonic Tutor. So the first thing I do is I cast the Dress Down, which draws me the Demonic Tutor. So then I'm able to go to my regular main phase and go on a very easy breach line from there, because the Soulless Jailer is turned off by the Dress Down, and they conceded pretty quickly once I like showed what I had. But the Dress Down felt great there, and that's exactly my thought process with it. I was like, in these kind of like stacked out mid-rangey board states, I want a way to push through. It is also an incredible interactive piece that just dunks on a lot of the decks in this really heavy creature meta, this really heavy Kinnon meta, which there were plenty of Kinnon decks in the field today. There were a lot. And it also is a way to pop the top, was kind of my thought. I'm like, if I Necro and I have the top deck tutor, I can Dress Down to get that card. You know, yeah. I can Dress Down to draw the card that I put on top through Necro. That was one of my thought processes, and I felt super rewarded for exactly the card I added, coming through it every way I needed it to come through. Pop the top, get rid of the stacks pieces, just do everything I wanted to do. I was like, perfect. This is exactly why I added you, and I was able to get the win there round 2, which felt great. Going into round 3. Round 3 was a really interesting one. I had Blue Farm in 1st seat. I had, what deck was in 2nd seat? Magda in 2nd seat. Myself in 3rd seat, and then Brian Barton. I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong, Brian. We had Brian, a guy I've recently coached on Blue Farm, in 4th seat. Really, really good game. Really, really interesting game for this one. Blue Farm got off to a very, very quick start. They had a turn 1, I believe, Remora. And so, like, you know, everything was trying to, like, not overfeed this Remora to an extent. My hand does not end up doing what I wanted it to do. So I went on a line on, like, turn 3, I think, where, you know, I said to Brian, because I knew he had a counterspell, because I believe he had either been oppoed or get probed. But so, like, the first farm Blue Farm player had looked at his hand, and it was clear he had seen counter magic from the conversations we had about it. And so I said to Brian, I was like, are you going to counter a fish here, like, given this board state? And he was like, no. And I was like, well, what if it's your fish? And he was like, oh, I guess not. and so I had to like Cabal Ritual into Praetor's Grasp into Mystic Remora to like get the mana to set this up. So I kind of gave away my potential win line there. But because Blue Farm had so many cards from a fish and I knew Brian had counter magic, it wasn't realistic for me to push through a win line from that position. So I decided to fall back into the card advantage plan, which ended up being perfect. So I was able to push through. I had to feed Ristic 3 cards to do it, or the other Blue Farm's fish 3 cards to do it, which kind of sucked, but I did get through and play Brian's Mystic Remora. In response to it, he Enlightened Tutored and put his Ristic Study on top. We got into real mid-range hell for this game. Go around, it was either 1 or 2 more turn cycles where like my hand wasn't doing anything. Suddenly I have it all. I have a Lotus Petal just on the battlefield and I'm able to draw into both Breach and Brain Freeze. And from the conversations, I knew that Brian had a Flusterstorm. And my cards in hand for interaction were Flusterstorm and Pact of Negation. So I'm like, okay, I can fluster his fluster and I have the Pact for whatever other counter. Like, I should probably be able to push through this Breach line here. I ended up making one interesting decision, which also I have a Gamble in hand. I do want to mention that I have a Gamble in hand, which obviously like the best thing for Breach in. But I didn't want to cast the Gamble first to up the storm count just in case I discarded my Breach that, you know, totally fucks me there. Right. So what I ended up doing was first spell for the turn, I just cast Underworld Breach. Get away from the Mind Break traps, get away from everything. Oh, I'm sorry. But first thing I did was pay for my Mystic Remora. My Mystic Remora only cost 1 here, so it actually was the next turn. I made the decision to pay with my Arcane Signet and not my Soul Ring. The thought there was I didn't need that many colored pips. It gave me more mana to pay for Ristic Study draws. That was my thought process. And again, I know there's a Fluster, and I'm able to beat one other counterspell. So in my brain, I'm like, what I lose to here is double Fluster. And that seems like a pretty low odd thing, right? There's not a chance that they would both have Flusterstorm. So what ends up happening in this turn is I cast the Breach, and then I cast the Brain Freeze. And Brian's hand, he goes for the Fluster, but he rips it off immediately, and so I immediately go, cool, like I will be passing on Fluster, but my Storm trigger has not resolved. Just to be very clear on my Brain Freeze, which technically that is true. So he was only able to Fluster the original copy, and then the Storm trigger goes, and I get an additional 3 cards in yard. I then, you know,
easy mistake to make.
Petal.
Easy mistake to make.
Easy mistake to make. Definitely me taking advantage of like the lack of time I was given there, where they just snapped it off. But like, fair play. And then I go to cast the Lotus Petal, and I literally pick up the Lotus Petal from my graveyard, and the Blue Farm player in first seat goes enters tapped, because he has a Dauntless Dismailer. And I'm like, well, I haven't even exiled 3 cards from my graveyard yet, so I have not officially cast the spell, to be fucking clear. But thanks for the heads up. So then, completely true. So then I go and
it's a fucking tournament.
It's 100% true. Like if I didn't even pick up my graveyard to start exiling cards yet, and he just said enter tapped as I like touched the Lotus Petal. So I was like, okay, thanks for the heads up. So then I go to cast the Gamble, and I try and fluster a counter on the Gamble. I believe that resolved, and then Blue Farm casts their additional Flusterstorm. And from this position, I was sadly out of colored pips. And this is where I can't decide if I punted or not, or if it's just an unfortunate thing that occurred, where if I had chosen to pay for my Mystic Remora at the start of my turn with my Soul Ring, I would have had 1 more colored pip to be able to recast the Gamble, and I most likely win the game there. But my thought process was try and not give as many Ristic Study draws, so I'm not 100% sure. I also didn't even think I was going to end up needing the Gamble, but it was a little, it's questionable. It's questionable. And obviously if I had made the correct decision there, if I had chosen to play around exactly double Flusterstorm, then I win the game. Which actually, no, I didn't even have to use my Pact. However this worked out, I never even used my Pact of Negation. I only had to use my Flusterstorm once. So like so if there's any other counterspell, I win the game there, because none of them had additional counter magic in their hands. But the fact that it was exactly double Fluster completely fucked me, and I was not able to win the game, which put me in a position that I was able to say, look, I'm done. My Breach is going to the yard. Like, I cannot win the game now. Can you feed me so I can get some interaction to deal with these other players?
Oh, no.
Because they were, no, like genuinely, all of them were in a good spot, and it did happen. Like, yeah, we were.
Oh my god!
Every time you say every player was
like every time you tell these stories and you get into like, and obviously they had to feed me cards. Like, god damn it!
No, they did though, because we just had to fight against constant. Get out of here! But like, no, genuinely, if you were able to go into that game and look at the context of that situation. situation. Everyone had a lot of cards in
It
their
happens,
hand.
yeah.
Everyone was clearly in a position to try and win the game. Like, it was that spot. Like, I'm now last in turn order. We're probably going to need to stop everyone, blah, 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 blah. And we are able to get it to my next turn, and I have a good amount of cards in hand at this point. And I look at my hand on my next turn, and it 100% cannot win the game. All I have drawn is interaction, which is great. It was exactly what I was talking about. But now I'm looking at the clock, and I'm like, we have 20 minutes left. All I have is interaction. Everyone here can obviously try and win the game. So I say, hey guys, we have 20 minutes left. I would like to propose a draw. And these conversations can actually be very interesting sometimes, because I said very clearly, I'm like, I'm just going to be real. All I got is interaction. All I got. So whoever goes for it first, they're getting stopped, and then someone else is winning.
Right.
You know, that's kind of the base I started with here. And, you know, both Blue Farm players in first seat and fourth seat, which is the, you know, turn order it's going to go, they both kind of look at their hands and they're like, well, with that knowledge, I'm probably not pushing through this win here. So, because they didn't have the Grand Abolisher effects. So they're like, okay, I'm down to draw. And Magda in the last seat position was like, I 100% expected to be winning on my next turn. But now that we're here, you guys just hold up interaction for me. So I can't win. So yeah, draw.
Damn.
I was able to get that game to a draw. The conversation can be really powerful sometimes because all of us just had interaction in hand. And so it was like, I was like, look, we can spend 25 minutes doing this if you guys want, but like, we all know how this ends. So yeah, it was glad there. We decided to play it out for fun, where then we just started like completely fucking around. I just slammed a Bergie horn and was like, let's see what happens.
Nice.
Which like, I 100% do not do there if that was not an agreed upon draw. There's no world,
right?
Because I was like, there's no world.
Right.
But yeah, game was super interesting. It was a really fun time. It was a really positive game environment. Everyone was super nice in that pod. I like really enjoyed that game. It was cool to see the deck just like top deck into this like easy breach line. I was like, holy shit, this is just sure. Like, but yeah, so we ended up finishing round 3 at 1-1-1. Yeah, and I was having a good time. I was feeling pretty positive, and we go into round 4. And round 4 was an interesting pod. We had Yuriko on the play. We had myself in second seat. Again, my turn order this tournament went first, third, second. Can't fucking complain. In third seat was Kinnan yet again. And in fourth seat was Temujin on Thrasios Francisco. This game, I started off nice and real slow. So I don't know how low I mulled in this one. I really don't remember what my starting keep was. But the game developed just like kind of slowly. Yuriko, you know, was able to start getting their attacks in. And I was able to get out a Rhystic Study pretty quickly here, which was able to land. And then Kinnan was starting to develop mana pretty quickly. And then Temujin was kind of biding his time as well, obviously setting up, like even with the Null Rod on board, just playing out the Wish Claw and stuff like that. I'm on RogSi though. My hand doesn't do much else besides try and win the game, and I didn't really have like enough interaction to try and stop other people. So I was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna try and do something here and just see what happens. It was probably incorrect to do this, but on the end step before my turn, I auto-warred the Null Rod and then just sent a Jessica's Will.
Pray, just
at this point,
yeah,
at this point,
hell yeah.
At this point, by the way, at an earlier turn, like one turn before this, Kinnan had played Hullbreaker Horror, had used a Evoked Endurance to bounce Yuriko or one of the ninjas just to like make their life, because they were getting pretty far ahead, which I think it was an interesting play. It was something we talked about. We were like, we didn't answer to Yuriko, and my next Rhystic Study draw was Deadly Rollick after that conversation, but I didn't have to use it because Kinnan just like snapped off and said I got something during combat. So I was like, okay. And so you know, we did the Hullbreaker thing, and then someone tried to remove the Hullbreaker at one point, and Kinnan bounced it back to their hand. So that's all no knowledge when I go for this Jessica's Will. And Temujin Swan Songs my Jessica's Will, and I'm like, bro, I don't got to pay off it, man. Like, I'm fucking blind setting this bitch, bro. Which I don't lie when I say that, 100% true. And I'm thinking about countering it, and he literally flashes me the Force of Will, and he goes, just so you know, if you try and fight this. And I look at him and I go, there is no fucking shot. Yeah, I was like, there is no shot in hell you are using that Force on this right now when I've told you I don't have a payoff, and we're going into Kinnan's turn where we know he has a Hullbreaker. Get out of here. And so I just fucking counter his Swan Song with my Force, and then he lets it through. And I was like, yeah, that's what I thought. I end up hitting no payoff, but I do hit a Mystic Remora. So I'm able to, I had Dockside in hand, so I was able to make some treasures as well to like hold up more mana for interaction and stuff. So I just was able to play Dockside with the Jessica's Will mana, and then just play that fish was really all I did. And then I passed the turn. Sadly was not able to like really utilize getting rid of the Null Rod there, but you know, worked out okay. And now I have a fish and a Ristic, which tends to be a pretty good spot to be in. Going into Kinnon's turn, he knows he can't win with Hullbreaker right here, I guess with the RogSi in hand, so he doesn't bother for that line. He ends up going for Gilded Drake, which, keep in mind, now the No Rod has been removed. Temujin has on board a Flesh Duplicate clone of Kinnon, a Thrasios, and a Wishclaw. So, like, presented deterministic win with only on board information. And so Kinnon goes for the Gilded Drake, and this is an interesting play. And Temujin, I love you, buddy. You know I appreciate you and I respect you so much as a player, but as I've talked about during this game, I disagree with what you did here. Temujin's response to the Gilded Drake was to give the guy an ultimatum, where rather than try and make some kind of deal, he said, if you take my Thrasios, I'm giving the Wishclaw to Yuriko, which was objectively, like, an incorrect thing to do given the board state. Like, Yuriko can win with that Wishclaw. Immediately I was like, bro, like, are we at a point that we're just like threatening people now? That's not how we play this game, bro. And he was like, I'm giving an ultimatum. Kinnon player took the Thrasios, and Temujin said, okay. Go into Temujin's turn, you know, puts the Wishclaw activation in the stack. I go, bro, you are too good of a player to do something like this. This is not a deal. Like, you know it is incorrect to give that to Yuriko. I will make the deal you know I will hold, where I will not activate that Wishclaw if you give it to me. Like, this is incorrect to do. And he goes, I gave an ultimatum and I'm sticking to my word. He made a choice. It's his fault. And I said, for the record, it is not his fault.
Damn.
It is not his fault. I do not believe that is how we politic. So I disagree with how this entire situation was handled. Temujin kind of seemed like he was not in the best mood this whole game. So, like, I don't know what's going on there. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he is a friend of mine. I appreciate him. I respect the shit out of him. But this exact politic and play pattern, I was not a fan of, and I will happily say that I'm not a fan of, and not one I think should be a common thing that people do. I don't think ultimatums are the way to get shit done here. I don't think that's the political move. I think
super dangerous. Super dangerous. Every time I've tried to give an ultimatum, it always backfired on me. Like, literally every single time.
Because it's not a deal that was made. It's just you making the choice to make an incorrect decision that's objectively incorrect for the sake of you just threatened to do it. So that was not a whole interaction that I was super happy to see. I wasn't a fan of it.
Yeah, like I said, I think it just backfires most of the time. Like, you do that, you issue the ultimatum that ultimately plays against your interests, and then if you have two choices at that point, either you go back on it and no one, you know, is afraid of your ultimatums ever again, or you follow through and you lose the game because it's the wrong play. So either way, it's...
Which 100%, I understand when he gave it to Yuriko, he said, I said I'm giving it to Yuriko, and he gave it to Yuriko. Like, I understand from his perspective at that point of, I'm going to stick to my word. I just disagree with how that whole situation was handled. But yeah, then going into, you know, he ended up top decking Basalt Monolith, funny enough, and we were able to interact with him enough where he couldn't win. Which obviously, again, draws me cards, as I have Fish and Ristic. And then we go into Yuriko's turn, and Yuriko immediately goes for the Sakashima Student combo with RogSi. Yeah. What he does is he does the ninjutsu ability for which Sakashima Student was already on the battlefield, by the way, as a copy of Thrasios, I believe. And then what he does is he tries to do the ninjutsu thing to put it onto the battlefield as a copy of Dockside. And I immediately tell the table, I'm like, this is copying my Dockside. This goes infinite. This wins the game right here. And I do not have the proper interaction to deal with this at this point. And, you know, Temujin is like, I do have this Force of Will in hand and this other stuff, blah blah blah, for whatever we were trying to counter at the time. I think it was I tried to Chain of Vapor my Dockside, and in response, Yuriko cast Mental Misstep. So there was an interaction that the Force of Will mattered for on the board. Yeah, he tries to do the Sakashima Student thing, and I'm like, look, I don't have the answer to this right now. Temujin's like, can you give me cards? He literally reveals his hand to me. He has a Force of Will. He has a Force of Vigor. He doesn't have a blue card. He doesn't have a green card. You know? And so he can't do any of those things. And so I start saying, okay, I will cast random spells to give you draws. So I cast a Dark Ritual. You know, Dark Ritual resolves, draws him a card, doesn't give him either thing. I cast and then I go, okay, like, this is kind of the last one I can cast right here. I cast Born Upon Wind, which I really did not want to cast there. I really was not ready to do that. And so Born Upon Wind resolves, ends up drawing him a green card.
Okay. And
so there he's able to Force of Vigor, targeting the Wishclaw, and I think it was my Mana Crypt at that point, which draws me 2 more cards, which did draw me into Infernal Plunge, which lets me sack Dockside as cost.
And you already have a resolved Born Upon Wind now, right?
And now I have a resolved Born Upon Wind as well. And the cards I was drawing off of some of these things might have been Rituals and Tutors. So I was like, okay. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna cast this Inferno Plunge on my dock side. I'll pay for your heuristic study. And I end up starting to go through a Born Upon a Wind line where I'm able to kind of like pay for heuristic every single time. And then I end up with I cast Demonic Tutor while I have some mana floating. And on, I forget it was, like the way the math worked out with how much mana I had, I was gonna have to give this man one fucking heuristic draw. I needed to give him one heuristic draw and just pray it wasn't a blue card. And so when I was looking at my hand, I was like, this hand can win next turn, to be clear. And I am next in turn order after Yuriko. So I don't have to cast a Final Fortune or anything like that to like go to my next turn as long as we can stop Yuriko. So I looked at my payoffs and I'm like, Breach wins absolutely right now. But then I looked at my graveyard and I looked at the cards I had in there and I was like, I can also win with Yawgmoth's Will. I can 100% win with Yogg's Will here. But also, if Yogg's Will gets countered, I still have Breach next turn. I can go for that. And so I made the decision to go for Yogg's Will on the Born Upon a Wind line. Because Breach is just such a harder thing to deal with after it's gone. Like Breach being gone sucks so bad in that deck. So I really wanted the Breach for my turn, not right now, because that's just the better active payoff. Because tons of things can happen to your graveyard when you're against, you know, Cannon with Endurance and all that kind of stuff. So I would rather save the Breach. So I decided to go for Yogg's Will on the Born Upon a Wind line, and exactly Temujin had top decked a Mental Misstep to go with his Force of Will to counter my Yawgmoth's Will, which I said, that's fine. We've already kind of stopped Yuriko. I know Yuriko can't now win from their position with they had like no mana available. They're gonna get one Yuriko trigger off this attack. Like, I'm 100% getting an extra turn here, or next turn here. So I used my remaining mana after Born Upon a Wind to cast Imperial Seal. Put Breach on top. And then I might have baited Yuriko here a little bit. With the Yuriko trigger on the stack, what he did cast was Limduel's Vault, which I'm at 16 life. Temujin's at 10. Kinnan was at like 13. And so in my brain, I'm like, the highest CMC they usually play is the whatever of mortality, Shadow Mortality or whatever, which is a 15 drop. So I'm like, worst case, I'm still untapping here at 1 life. Like the absolute worst case, I'm untapping here at 1 life and they die, and I don't have to deal with that interaction.
Yeah, sounds good.
But the way he's looking, he's like, I don't think I can kill him, and I'm like, okay. So then I'm like, oh, you just get an interaction. And I was like, and I even said, I was like, you gonna grief me with a Mind Break Trap, knowing that Mind Break Trap did not do anything to me with my hand. But I said it, and he 100%, you know, through his deck, and then he flips the top card for the Yuriko trigger and it's Mind Break Trap. immediately Temujin's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I didn't lie. I was just like, oh, you're gonna grief me with Mind Break Trap. I didn't do that.
Oh man.
So then I untap on my turn, which I already drew the Breach off the
Inception. You just put the thought in his mind. That's all.
Exactly.
Here it is.
Exactly. That was exactly what that was.
Do what you will with
because I had interaction. I had more interaction at this point. I had a Flusterstorm, and I know Temujin has nothing. I know Kinnan has nothing. So I just have to beat exactly the interaction on Yuriko with my Flusterstorm. And so I'm like, if I can fade one piece of interaction here, I have the easiest win of my fucking life. And then I untap on my turn. I cast Underworld Breach. I literally kind of show they're like, what's in your graveyard? I'm like, Demonic Tutor, a billion rituals. Like what else do you want? And I show my hand. I'm
everything
like,
I need.
I have in my hand is Gamble and Flusterstorm and more tutors. Like, what do you want from me, bro?
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, let's play it out for a second. So I cast my dockside, and then they try and Mind Break Trap the dockside on like whatever my third spell was, and then I'm like, okay, Fluster, and they're like, okay, we can scoop it. So I was able to get the win there, which put me at 2-1-1, 11 points after round 4, primed to go in round 5 and just ID into top 16 on fucking RogSi, dude. All the games were like pretty interesting. I had to go on some like really interesting lines and like try some different things that I just never done before in a tournament setting. So like that was really enjoyable. Round 4, we got a 3-11 and a 12-pointer pod, so it was an easy ID. It was Waffle in that
round
pod.
5, right? Round 5. Yeah. Round 5 was just the easy ID pod. I saw that one.
And then we go into top 16. I ended up as the 14th overall seed for top 16, which put me in a game that was Najila on the play, Waffle on Dargothras in second seat, Najila going third, and myself on Rograk Silas going fourth. And it was super funny looking back at this game in the stream and like even seeing some of the comments like, what the fuck, Wounded's on RogSi? And I was like, it was super fun, dude. I was super fun. And so my second 7 in this game was, I'll send you a picture, we can put it on the screen. It was 4 lands, Paradise Mantle, Thassa's Oracle, Tainted Pact.
Oh my god.
was, and I was like,
that's such a good RogSi. That's how you're supposed to do it, man. That's how you do it. Just rip it. Just go. Just go. Don't, you know.
And I was like, I'm not winning the mid-range battle against two Nagilas and a Dargo Thras. No. It's not happening. It's not happening. They're gonna beat the shit out of me with Nagila. Like, there's no world. And so I looked at this hand and I'm like, this is pretty unlikely to work. And then I had this mental flashback to like my first time ever talking to Zane about RogSi, and all I saw was Daddy Zane's face just say no fear. and I was like, fuck it, we ball, baby.
Oh my god, that's so funny, dude.
And so I keep, again, on a day I was not expecting a top 16, I was just planning to have fun. I said, fuck it, I'm gonna try this on turn 3. If I don't win, I don't give a shit. I've had a good time. Who fucking cares? And they all keep like 7 cards. I'm like, that's not a good sign.
Nope. Nope.
By the way, I talked to Serge after this game, and he goes, "I wouldn't have kept that." And I was like, "That's fair. That's fair." I do regret it at this point. It was the most memey hand I've ever kept in my life. It ends up going that like Nagila and third seats turn 3. Everyone is untapped mana. There's already a revealed Fierce Guardianship, and because there is a revealed Fierce Guardianship, I cannot Thorkel Tainted Pact. I am now stuck in the play pattern of I gotta go all in and reverse Thorkel and get this Tainted Pact through. So on the end step before my turn 3, I go, gotta find something and cast Tainted Pact.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
And Waffle, dude, Waffle's so good. He knows me too well, bro. He goes reverse Thorkel immediately. Like Snap says it. And everyone passes on Tainted Pact though. And in my brain, I'm thinking, if I hit a Ristic or a Mystic fairly quickly here, I would probably think about it long enough to maybe fall back into that plan. Like, if that's in the first few cards, but, first 20 cards exiled some good shit, but not good shit that I needed in that moment. And so, as they say, is he slow rolling us for the fucking 5th time while I'm trying to resolve this Tainted Pact? I pick up my deck and I flip it over. I take the second to last card, which was something I don't even remember, and then the bottom card was my draw for turn. I untap, I draw, and I did draw Daze on like my turn 2, so it's like I have a piece of counter magic, maybe. But keep in mind, going into this, no one is tapped down. And so, I say fuck it. Untap, draw, tap, tosses Oracle. First Nagila, passes. Waffle, I don't got chip for it, passes. Third Nagila, guess it's on me, plays a dress down. Oh. Since when does Nagila play dress down? And for a couple minutes, I'm looking at my hand.
For a second there, you saw the
stars. I believed, dude.
For a brief shining moment, the heavens parted, and you saw the gates of heaven.
I'm literally, you see me shaking my hand saying, no fucking way this works! No fucking way this works! And he plays a dress down. I look at my hand, which my hand has like a Deadly Rollick and a Daze, and so I'm like, I could Deadly Rollick the Nagila, bait out the Fierce, but then he has 1 mana left up for the Daze anyway, so it doesn't matter. And I'm like, all right. I look at my hand. Meanwhile, Waffle the entire time is going, if you can't win, don't cast spells. And I'm like, bro, I fucking know. Like, I'm not stupid. Just let me fucking think for a second. I end up realizing I have no realistic line here. I respectfully decide to stay in the game so they can continue beat the shit out of me, and I exist for as long as I should. I think that is absolutely the sportsman-like correct thing to do in that scenario. Don't just snap, concede, and grief people for no reason. Like, I am the punching bag for the Nagilas, you know what I mean? So I push my permanents forward, I lay out my hand on the table, and I respectfully pass the turn. And I joke about griefing Waffle multiple times where I could have dazed his invasion, but obviously I took no game actions at that point. I'm not going to do anything to affect the game in any way. I might as well be dead, but I exist for the purpose of like their dock sides and such.
Well, there's no draw opportunity anymore, right? So that's
but there's no point in me. But like I said, it only griefs people unnecessarily if I concede there. There's absolutely no reason to do it. So yeah, I mean that occurred, and then I get to my next untap step, and I say I would like to hold priority in my upkeep. I'm gonna cast this Deadly Rollick targeting my Rograk. I would like to hold priority. I would like to tap my land and cast this Daze targeting my Deadly Rollick. I will pay 1 for the Daze. And then I will pay 2 for Esper by tapping Rograk in my land. And then my Rograk will be exiled, and then I would like to move to draw step.
Beautiful.
And then immediately Waffle goes, well, I would like to activate Thrasios with the Deadly Relic on the stack. And I go, bro, don't you fucking dare deflecting swat this. Like, bro, you know I'm doing this as a meme. Do not do this. And he goes, okay, I won't. I was like, okay.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
But like, no, I mean, I think he knew that would have been like beyond scummy if he fucking like actually deflecting swatted my Rollick there. But he
went on to win the tournament.
No one interacted with it.
Yeah, and
he did go on to win the tournament. Like, big props to Waffle. Big props to Waffle. It was like comical, dude. In our top 16 game, like after I died, he was on the Seedborn activate Thrasios plan. Every fucking activation was interaction. Every single one was just revealing Force of Will, Mind Break Trap, Mental Misstep, like on fucking repeat. And his draws for turn, he was like, yeah, my last 2 draws for turn were Red Blast, Swan Song, like just non-stop interaction.
Except for me. Yep.
There was an interesting point in that game where when I was still alive on Najeela's, because Waffle cast the evasion for Seaborn after my Thoracle turn, so I existed until my next draw step. And on the turn after that, Najeela went for a swords on the Seaborn Muse, and Waffle was able to mind break trap the swords, and he already had revealed Pact and Force in hand and stuff. And Najeela looked at his hand that did have more counter magic with Fierce and stuff, and made the decision. He was like, I can't beat this, so I'm just going to let it go. Interesting decision point. I think you have to fight it there and hope other Najeela also can help. Because if you choose not to use your counter magic there and get rid of his resource, then you will never overcome what he has.
Yeah, well, at that point, the Seedborn is your draw engine. That's his draw engine. That's that's his advantage. You got to take him off the advantage. If you don't, you'll never catch up.
That's my point.
Yeah, you'll never catch up.
So that was my point. Like the decision to let it go and say, I'm going to hold my counter magic and maybe use it to push through. I can do something later. But no, you never will, because
my opinion is in those situations, like you fight over the value engines at that point, and you pressure the player with everything you got. Like as a table, like
exactly
hit their life total.
But they had to make him
hit their hand, like
stuff.
Anything. Like even if things look like they're not really helping, like they got plenty of life. What's 2 damage going to do? No, you put every bit of pressure on them you can, because it's going to matter.
Which they did. They started attacking Najeelas. They started giving each other more warriors as well. Like they did a really wonderful job on that. But my point is, in that interaction point with the swords, I think they should have fought a lot harder, because if you Fierce and then Waffle forces, and then you counter again, and he uses his Pact there, you've now tempoed him out of a whole turn where he has to pay for his Pact. Right. Which gives you guys the ability, I absolutely think they should have fought harder over that Swords to Plowshares. Yes. Because obviously, if they get that through, I don't think Waffle wins that game. If they did have enough counter magic to beat what he had there, I do not believe Waffle wins that game. I do not believe they get it through. Right. But I think if they get him to the point to pay for Pact, maybe that buys them the 1 turn they need to kill him with Najeelas.
Well, the fact of the matter is you're at a resource disparity at that point. You are falling further and further behind. Right. The gap is only going to get wider from there. This is the narrowest the resource gap is going to be at that point. So you have to try to fight there, because after that you're not going to get
exactly
there. Yeah.
Because the thought process of, I can't beat you right now, so I'm not going to bother, you will never beat him in that mindset. Because, yeah, like you said, the resource disparity, it only gets worse. You will never be able to push through win attempt because you didn't make him use the resource he had. Yep. So I think they played that part of it incorrectly, but I really like what they did, where they did think, oh, I can give you more Najeela tokens. We're both playing Najeela, baby. Like that, that's a rare thing you see happen, but that was a really good moment to utilize that interaction. I was a huge fan of that choice. Right. But obviously, like, super well played by Waffle. The other play that Waffle played that we have to absolutely applaud, right after I went for my Thoracle, with the revealed Fierce in the other guy's hand, the other Najeela right after me went for Thoracle Consult. And with the consultation on the stack, Waffle said, don't do something yet. He just cast Snap targeting the guy's Najeela. Turns off commander-based interaction. Turns out the guy's protection for his combo was, in fact, Fierce Guardianship in hand.
Yep.
Kind of wild. That was such a good play. That was such a good heads-up call. So, like, absolute props to Waffle on that one. And then I've not watched the finals game. I think I watched the last turn, just like quickly went and watched it, and like seems like he did a really good job. He did end up on a play for the finals, which is like awesome spot to be in, especially on Dark Thras, where you're able to like go fast or like value grind out, but like get that shit set up quickly. It's a deck that is really good at any point in the game, because if you're later in turn order, you can fall more into the dockside plans, and if you're earlier in turn order, you can go on like the progressive value based mid range plan a little bit better. So really like that part about the deck, but being on play always really helpful. And then seemed like he heavily out politicked up in that game. Like I remember just hearing that last turn where whatever player I think was on Narset was immediately like, we got out politicked.
Yeah.
So I didn't see all the politics, but like seems like that was the vibe of the game, where he was able to just like kind of dictate what was going on there, which is one of his skills, something he's really good at.
So I'll just sit here and take all the credit, by the way, for him winning, because me calling out Sean as, you know, Middle Midget as the #1 Dargo Thrasios player, now that Waffle had abandoned his deck, you know, had to get to him, had to like rile him up a little bit, and you know, because of me, he decided to play Dargo Thrasios, so because of me, he won this tournament. So congratulations, Waffle, and you're welcome.
I'm a little mad at him for his weak fucking resolve. Me and him have been talking for weeks about just dicking around on other decks that we don't play as often, and just like having fun in some like obviously give it our best shot in the like big events, but like have fun in the online events. Like that's kind of what we've talked about doing a lot lately. And we've talked about a bunch of decks that we want to play and do these. He was supposed to play Marnius this week. We talked about that. He was like, yeah, I'm gonna bring Marnius, you'll bring RogSi, like we're gonna have fun. And then he got talked into playing Dargo Thras the night before. I'm like,
well, he heard me. I mean, like with that kind of pressure, with me putting pressure on him, like, come on, like what's he supposed to do? Like, I'm too much. He had to give in. Like, he had to do it. He had to do what I told him to do.
Sure.
I'll send you my PayPal, Waffle. I want to get my cut. Thanks, dude.
Your 10% management fee.
Yeah. So anyway, you know, that's it for that tournament. But let's do a quick breakdown of the of the meta.
I was gonna say, let's look at the meta real quick.
Yeah, and I was looking at it, and this is becoming the standard at this point. You know, 15 Timnacrom, 12 Kinnan, 8 Sisay. Najila seems to be making a little bit of a comeback. Just 7 Najila, 7 Tivit, 6 Dargo Thrasios. Also, you know,
there was a lot of Dargo Thras
swelling.
Yeah,
go ahead.
That was part of what happened. Like, part of the reason he swapped over to Dargo Thras was the conversation with him and Punchy and everybody, where they talked about, okay, let's just all bring Dargo Thras today.
No, it's because I pressured him. It was me.
Sure. Yeah. You can believe that. That's fine.
But also, we also got Tevesh Krom.
5 Corvalds.
Yep, 5 Corvalds. Only 3 RogSis, of which you were the only one that made top 16. 3 Obnix, 2 Magda, and then we got 2 Tyam. So Tyam made top 16 again. Tuka. So congrats to Tuka. Blech. And then, but otherwise, you know, interesting tournament. Shout out to we did see Shauna play. She played Abaddon the Despoiler. Yep. So cool to see her back in a tournament. Not good. She went 2 wins,
2-2. Okay.
2 wins, 2 draws. But I'm just happy to see her play again, because she took a lot of time off there. So you know, getting her feet wet again. That's great.
Wait, is Niv Mizzet in the Abaddon deck?
Oh, good question.
I have to check.
No.
Oh, I love the name. She named it Fool's Chaos.
Yeah.
Instead of Fool's Gold, so, like Sharky's deck.
No, there is no Niv Mizzet. I'm horrified.
Okay.
I'm horrified.
Yeah, this is how would you do this?
Shauna, come on. Yeah, just like
Shauna, just rocking the Grixis Turbo vibe. Though. Wow.
Just like I did with Waffle, I'm going to help you win a tournament. Okay, you can play any deck you want as long as Niv Mizzet is in the deck.
Sure.
Or do whatever the fuck you want. Anyway, but yeah, that's it. You know, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. You know, talked about a lot of cool things today, not just the tournament breakdown. Although I really enjoyed this one. A lot of cool plays. Hopefully you guys will like and subscribe this video and keep growing the channel. We do have our Patreon in the description below that we would love to have you join if you want. We have our Discord that you can join as well. And if you want some coaching, reach out to Max here. What kind of coaching do you do, Max?
I offer CEDH coaching. I might start doing gameplay coaching as well soon. I've had a lot of people ask me about that recently. It just seems like a scheduling nightmare to try and get everyone doing it at the same time. But yeah, if you're interested in CEDH coaching, feel free to reach out to me on Discord as WoundedSatellite or on Twitter as WoundedSatellite. I've been having a ton of fun with that lately. It's been like an absolute blast, and it's super cool to see the people that I'm coaching like perform in these events. It's been like really, really wholesome.
Yeah, awesome. With that, you want to take us out, man?
Sure. Thank you so much for listening to the Colors Over Crutch podcast. My name is Max Sternberg, also known as WoundedSatellite. This is our official mascot, Yuki, my amazing dog, who I have matching sweatshirts with. And I was joined, as always, by the most incredible host, friend, father that I could ever hope for, Max P, the Floralian man. Thank you so much for listening to us, and we look forward to talking to you next time.
Later, guys.